Remember, my dear listeners, if you are feeling abandoned and alone, as if you are just a tiny spark fading into the night, know that you are still shining through. I can see you, together, like a beacon, keeping the fire inside of my heart burning, and with that fire, I watch over you. Someone is always watching over you.
Sembrava illuminate di là. Как сын грустила матери, грустит моя земля одна. А звезды темнения, чуть ближе, но все так же голубы. И как в часы затмения, ждем света и земли, видим сны. И снится нам неровно космодрома, не эта ледяная синева, а снится нам трава у дома, зеленая трава.
Sometimes, when building a world, we have to go back. So in today's video, we're going to be exploring pre-war, the space race, and the many effects that it had in the alternate points in history. 1934, a brave pilot decides to try reach new heights. In doing this, he creates the first pressure suit, a key point in the marker of history, as this would mark a new age of exploration, seeing just how far we can push the human body. And unbeknownst to this man trying to reach new heights, this would be a marquee moment for the space race. In 1941, the USSR launched the first ever object into space, alongside it marking the first satellite in the world. This would be a key moment in World War II, but alongside that, it would be a key moment into the idea of exploring beyond. From this point onwards, the USSR would start developing new tech with the goal of reaching the moon. In 1948, the USSR would declare their wish to reach the stars and conquer the moon. In reaction, Harry Truman announces their new goal to reach the stars before the Soviets. Two nations with ambitious goals. However, this bright day in history will mark the start of a new war, one beyond our world. Alongside this announcement, the USA would establish a new space firm with the goal of exploring, backed by the government. Operations beginning officially in 1948. In 1956, the first man is sent into space. Rurik Sidorov. The USSR successfully sent the first ever man into the great unknown, January 7th. His mission lasting 67 minutes before he is forced to head home due to malfunctioning equipment within the miniature spacecraft. He safely lands home and is praised as the first man to reach the stars. In 1959, a great leap of faith is taken. The mission is remembered as the Great Unknown. MO2 is launched, wishing to not lose advantage to the US. The USSR sent 3 brave men into the Great Unknown. However, this mission would be one way. The crew land and walk on the moon successfully. The event broadcasted live across the globe. In an attempt to embarrass the Americans, 3 brave men sacrificed their lives for their nation. In 1960, due to built-up pressure, the CDD are forced into attempting an early mission towards the moon. Trying to avoid embarrassment, the Americans send a crew out into space. Sadly, a malfunction on board means the crew are left isolated and left to cruise into the great unknown. After the embarrassment that is the 1960 launch, the CDD received extra funding and the Americans aimed to catch up fully. With help from the UK, the CDD finally launched and successfully landed on the moon 3 years later, and the mixed crew of Americans and Englishmen do a speech from space, establishing the first robotic moon base due to support from MEC, a partnership between two companies that would help further push the Americans in this space race. After many years of development around space, other nations begin to worry of what might come if war was to break out. So in 1966, the first ever failed outer space treaty is sent. Many nations sign it in an attempt to keep things modest and civil between nations, but the USSR and the USA do not sign. A reformed space treaty is released, labeled the Wild West Treaty by many, in an attempt to fix tensions. A new treaty states simply that space and the moon have their own laws, but are fully separate from Earth, and no actions in space must affect actions on Earth. In 1971, the USSR launched the first ever working space station, Salyut 1. Lasting 6 months, it was a key moment in space history. A few years later, the USSR would establish the first fully sustainable moon base. At least, that is what they claimed. A crew of 12 are believed to have set up the first fully sustainable moon base, one on which these people will live and die in. The aim to grow a new age. Less than a few months later, the UK and US would come out, the first man-like robot that could be controlled from planet Earth. With the partnership of MEC and CDD, they combined to make what was essentially a man-like robot. Due to this, they were able to set up a moon base that only requires 2 engineers on board to fully repair or fix any issues with the robots. This would be a key moment in establishing that the US and UK had finally caught up in the space race, some seeing this as a moment where they surpassed the Soviets. Almost exactly 10 years after this great day, the USSR would establish and make the first ever military spacesuit, claiming a crew of 3 died on the moon, the believed cause to be sabotage. The USSR reacts by developing the first ever warfare suit for space and declaring war officially on the moon. What followed was, for many, a signal of the end. I hope you enjoyed that different kind of history dive. I know it might not be as interesting as monsters, and for sure I love the world of Barren, which is post-war. But history is really important in world building, as Barren's history is not just a repeat of the past. There are parts that have key changes and key factors that led to where Barren is and the difference in cultures that can be found within this world. Alongside that, obviously, there are many things that I didn't put on the timeline that I have in my head, because I'd rather leave some mystery in this world. So I do hope you enjoyed that, but let's get into some of the more fun things now. One of the other fun bits that I was exploring when making this was what you heard in the intro, essentially the last man in space. Now that can't be proven, as it's uncertain whether life has continued on the moon, but some call him the Heavens DJ, a talking star. He is a radio that broadcasts to the world. Sitting up top, he essentially, for many, is this light of joy. Now, he occasionally does spread that all must believe in God and God is great, but at his core, He's a good soul, left up top, talking into the void. Now and then, he can talk to those down below that have access to proper radios, but for many years, when the world ended, he was up there, talking, hoping that maybe a few were listening. And after a while, he kind of became this symbol. Many would tune in and essentially listen to him play different songs and share stories from his past, a kind of guardian to the people below. But now on to a key point that I want to mention. I did a poll and some people in the Discord mentioned it to me, and I think maybe it's about time we do a live stream and a Q&A. So I'm thinking on Wednesday or Thursday this week, I'll be doing a live stream. So below in the comments, if you could, please put some questions. I'm sure I'll reply to your comments because I love to. But if you want to, stop by the stream and I'll answer every question I get sent. Thank you for watching that video. And if you are interested, please check out the Patreon. I have a new tier where you can get monthly custom art made by me for your world. And if you don't want that, you can simply support the page over there. Any bit helps. I hope you enjoyed that episode, and any shares, likes, comments are fully appreciated. See you next time.